Great news. Your company has decided to start a new initiative and they need a new team. So, what happens next? Typically, although Agile does not recommend it, typically management gets together and figure us out the select few that are going to be part of this thing. Alrighty. So we gather a group of people, and because Agile says to have small teams, we're going to have 6 to 7 people that we're going to throw together into the kickoff meeting. And the kickoff meeting, everybody gets to meet each other, and management announces that these are now your new BFFs. Awesome. Okay, starting to feel weird. So, continue the excitement, they tell us all about it. These are the goals. Paint pretty good picture about the desired outcomes. And then somewhere along this theatrics, management gets started getting really, really, really weird and telling us that we're awesome, we're great. We have so much confidence in this team performing and doing the most wonderful, amazing things, startling us with creativity and innovation and all good stuff. I don't know about you, it starts reminding me about high school. Anyway, so we'll get through this somehow. The team gets started, and at the beginning, everything's going fine. Everybody's getting along, moving along, no big deal. And then all of a sudden, stuff starts getting real, and there are problems, and there are some concerns. And then all of a sudden, management gets really, really worried, and now they're not looking so happy. I have watched this story happen so many times. It's tragic. It's full of good intentions. I get it. But that's not the way it's supposed to go. Believe me, that's not what Agile's supposed to be at all. But what's going on? What's the dynamic that's playing out here? What is this complication about putting people together and expecting them to work together and deliver wonderful things? There's a very normal process in team dynamics or team development. And this process, everybody goes through in different ways, maybe at different paces, sometimes more intense, sometimes a little less. But in general terms, there is a pattern that we can observe when we look at the progression of multiple teams. And this progression, if you remember, I've talked about technology, how at the beginning there are a lot of very excited people who are ready to jump right on technology, and then it goes to different phases, and then eventually everybody hops on board and is able to use the technology. In a similar way, there are phases that teams go through, and each one of the phases has different characteristics. The important thing is to understand that there is a pattern, that there are different stages, and that this is normal. There's nothing wrong with it. Yes, some of them are not as fun as the others, and that's okay. Learning how to work through the difficult moments, that's the most important piece. That's the piece that when we master that, then we're able to tackle whatever challenges come ahead in the future. If we interrupt that process, what we're actually interrupting is the ability to learn how to get through those processes. So, what what are we talking about? What is this these different stages, and what do they mean, and what how do they affect you when you're trying to work in a team? In the 1960s, Bruce Tuckman created what we now call the Tuckman's model for team dynamics or team development. And it has 5 stages, as was originally defined. This is a forming, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning. Adjourning is something that in the agile space we tend not to want to happen because in the agile space we're dealing not with projects, but we're dealing with products and services. And we want our products and services to live as long as possible. So the idea of forming teams to get to a really high level of performance only to disband them doesn't make any sense. That's actually not a good investment. So we were going to focus on the first 4 stages for purposes of this chat. So when we look at these stages, the first one is this of forming. And this is the moment when we all get together, we introduce each other. This is the kickoff meeting. Everybody gets to learn who's in the team. And this is the moment to observe and start orienting ourselves. We understand the roles, we understand the work, we understand the relationships. We're trying to figure that out as we go along. And this is the moment to just learn, sit back and learn, and everybody's polite. Everybody's being nice to each other. This is when the moment that feels good and feels fun. There's a lot of excitement after all the cheerleading, and we get going. And as we progress, then reality hits us. Because at this moment, we know enough about each other, our strengths, our weaknesses, our needs, and we start figuring out that in order for to make this work, we are going to have to take charge of certain things. Sometimes it feels that way, or we have to figure out how we fit in the big picture, and we assert that. So we start questioning what's going on and we start challenging others' assumptions about us. And we are operating on assumptions about them because remember, this is at the early stages. So we don't really know each other. We've just come from being introduced and we're now trying to figure out how to work together. So this is a moment of positioning, positioning for influence and positioning for figuring out how this is all going to play out. This is the moment when management, I've seen it many times, they really get upset, they really get nervous when they start seeing things get real and sometimes unpleasant. We never wanted to get to a point of disrespect. Once we get there, we need to have conversations one on one. However, short of that, what we need to do is support the teams, remind them that this is normal, and then let them figure out how to get through it. Because once they learn how to get through it, they'll be able to use that skill that they just learned in any situation where there's disagreement. And especially if we're talking about AI, where there's so much uncertainty, so much unknown, so ethical issues, all kinds of challenges. We want a team that knows how to figure it out, how to talk about it passionately, and how to talk about it with sincerity, with openness, and figure it out and work their way through it. This is the training moment. This is the opportunity for teams to learn how to do that and apply that skill later on when they need it in order to deliver their best work. So cutting this short, interrupting it, trying to protect it, it's like bubble wrapping a child when they're trying to learn how to ride a bicycle. That's not a way to do it. We need to allow the scrapes and the hurt and those things when it's safe and when it's okay and when it's not a major disaster early on in establishing a team. That's the moment so that later on, everybody knows how not to run into trouble and they know how to work through it. So, this is a really important phase that's very healthy to get through as long as it's safe for everybody. I mean, we have to keep it respectful. So once we move past this, once the team has figured it out, now we're at a stage where we get into what's called the norming stage. In the norming stage, the early politeness that we experienced in forming, now it's not just social posturing, it's authentic. It's we really are coming from a space of wanting to collaborate, wanting to support each other, wanting to reach a moment of shared understanding that brings us together. And that's what really brings the team together. That's when you have the team identity really emerge. The team identity doesn't emerge on day one when we come up with a team name and things like that. That's not the moment. This is the moment. Once we really know each other, we know our strengths, our weaknesses, what we need, and we're there to support each other. That's when the real team identity emerges. And now, after a moment, a period of performing at this level, now's when we can finally get to the performing level. And the performing level, that's the peak effectiveness. This is when the team has really fluid coordination, collaboration, innovation, high standards, the ability to really support each other and figure things through. And going back, if they haven't acquired the skills all along to get through the difficult moments, then they're going to suffer at this moment. They may never reach this high level of performance. If we allow it with safety early on, then this is the moment that they can shine and they can demonstrate what they are able to do. The progression through these stages isn't strictly linear, and there's some people who question the validity of the model. And there's a lot of validity in that. I have watched it in a great majority of teams. It doesn't always happen exactly, or it's not always as clear to see what stages the teams are in. But in general terms, I would tell you from experience that the majority of teams go through it. And what's important is just to share with the teams that this is normal. Better to share it with them before at the early stages when they've just gotten together. Let them know about this so that as they go through the stages, they can recognize it themselves and they can feel comfortable knowing that this is normal and they'll just have to work through it. And that's okay. It's not a big deal. Normalizing this progress reduces anxiety and it fosters resilience in the teams because they know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to be a nightmare forever, especially at that storming stage. Skipping, No, I don't recommend that. It's you want to as much as possible gradually work your way through it. And this is what's going to get us to that high level of performance that we want. There is a performance that we can expect to see in teams at the early stages when they're all informing and just getting to know each other. We can expect a modest and reasonable performance level and then expect it to plummet, expect it to go down. Why? Because all of that storming noise is getting in the way. They're fighting to get through it. There's literally, in some cases, fighting. Hopefully not too severely, but they're working their way through it, and it's raw and it's pleasant, and um, yeah, they have to get through it. So of course they're not going to perform at high levels. That's what's taking up their time. It's when they get past it, now we start seeing that the team performance starts going up. And eventually they exceed their baseline performance from the forming stage to get to levels of high level of performance. And that's when they really wow us. That's when they deliver the best work forever. Now, is it really forever? It's going to go back and forth. And expect this cycle to go back and forth. And there are many things that can trigger a reset. For example, if a team member leaves the team, or if we add another team member, that changes the team dynamics. All it takes is one person with a slightly different personality, and there's an entire world of personalities out there that will trigger this process to go over again. Typically, when the team goes through it multiple times, subsequent times take a lot shorter. So it's not going to be as long as initially, typically. There are always exceptions, and that's why people question the validity of the model, but there's typically that's what you will go through. Another thing that can trigger the reset is if you change the nature of the work. If the work changes significantly, for example, there may be people that in your initial definition had specific skills that everybody in the team knew and learned how to depend on. And now all of a sudden we change the work and now it's somebody else in the team. And that alone can change a lot of the team dynamics. So there are many things that can reset this. It's normal. Don't be concerned. Just simply understand the different stages and work your way through them anytime that they happen. And that's okay. As we go through the stages, what's important is to be ready to support the teams. Understand that this is change. Creating a team and getting it to that high level of performance, it's a period of change. And whenever there's change, we need to support. So at the forming stage, one of the things that we can do is we can encourage sharing who we are, who everybody is, what they bring to the table, the things that work for them, the things that don't work for them. This is a very common stage for coaches to recommend establishing working agreements, for example, where teams have an opportunity to share with each other what they need in order to succeed, and everybody gets to learn from each other, and then the team has a baseline that they know that they can work against. That's one of the tools that you can use. There are many. But in whatever way, be prepared to encourage that sharing to get to know each other. When we're looking at the storming stage, the main thing is to just normalize conflict from the perspective of as long as we remain respectful, just figure out the most important thing is to figure out how to get through it. It's part of normal part of growth. Just figure out how to get through it. Once the team is able to do that, now we can start talking about establishing psychological safety because the team has figured out their sensitive points, their touch points, and how raw things can get, and they can learn how not to allow it to get to dangerous levels. So this is a really good opportunity for the team to learn how to establish stable, strong psychological safety in the team. When we're talking about the norming stage, what's really important is to celebrate, to reinforce the positive behaviors that we're seeing and any milestones that are achieved, because this is the team's success from having worked through this, getting to this point, and that's just going to build the momentum to get them to those higher levels of performance. And once we're in performing, it's just giving them autonomy, supporting them from a distance. We've established a pull relationship where they're coming to us to help them resolve impediments. Otherwise, this is a team who has figured out how to work together, and they don't need us to baby them. They can figure it out. So, yeah, you may go through a few cycles of this. You change the nature of the work, you change people, just simply go through it. It's probably going to be a lot faster than subsequent times. And we need to have that healthy team dynamic, which comes from allowing this process to go naturally so that the team is empowered and capable of solving complex problems, which is what all of this AI stuff is all about and what all the Agile has taught us to do. So, this is the point that we want to get to. And in order to do that, we need to have basic skills like psychological safety, a strong emotional intelligence, and all that. So, if you want to learn about it, just click on one of these and I'll meet you there and I'll tell you all about it.